hiker with years of solo treks under his belt, had chosen this route for its solitude, a 3-day loop through the arid backcountry, guided by an old but trusted topographic map that promised a hidden mountain spring. He needed the quiet, the crisp clarity of open air, away from the noise of his life. But as the midday sun climbed higher, the heat rippled the horizon into liquid deception, and the ground beneath his boots no longer felt solid. The landscape itself seemed to breathe, warping like a mirage, and for the first time in years, Jason hesitated, his compass spinning lazily, as if the very earth had lost its north. Jason crested the ridge, sweat cooling on his brow as he prepared to descend into the valley. But his breath caught in his throat. The landscape ahead was wrong. The deep green basin he expected was gone, replaced by a vast, blinding expanse of salt flats, stretching to the horizon in a cracked, shimmering haze. He fumbled for his map, fingers trembling, but the valley wasn't marked, only blank space where it should have been. His compass needle twirled in slow, mocking circles, as if the earth itself had tilted beneath him. The air hummed with silence, thick and heavy, and for the first time, Jason wondered if he had ever truly known where he was. The salt flats stretched endlessly in every direction, barren and still, except for the cairns. Dozens of them, small towers of stacked stone, rose from the cracked earth like skeletal fingers. Their arrangement was unmistakable. Each cluster formed sharp, deliberate arrows, all pointing back toward the ridge Jason had just crossed. He crouched, running a hand over the rocks, too evenly placed to be wind-scattered, too methodical to be the work of chance. Someone had built them, someone who didn't want him going forward. The silence pressed in as he counted them again, as if the desert itself were whispering, "Turn back." The sun bled into the horizon as Jason secured the last tent peg, his movements sharp with unease. The salt flats, now bathed in eerie twilight, offered no comfort, only silence, vast and suffocating. Then a sound sliced through the stillness. A child's giggle, bright and far too close. His body locked, breath trapped in his lungs. Before he could react, a soft thud against the tent fabric, a tiny, muddy handprint smearing the nylon from the outside. Fingers splayed like a plea. The giggle stopped. The wind didn't stir. Jason's own reflection stared back at him in the dimming light. But the handprint wasn't his, and in the silence he realized nothing out here could have made it. Jason's pulse roared in his ears as he stared at the tiny handprint, the edges of the mud still glistening under the fading light. Every instinct screamed to flee, but there was nowhere to run, just the endless salt flats and the deepening dark. Swallowing hard, he leaned closer to the tent flap, his voice barely a whisper, "I see you." The giggling cut off instantly, as if snatched away by the wind. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating, pressing against the tent like a living thing. Jason's skin prickled. No rustling footsteps, no distant laughter, just the hollow absence of sound, as though whatever had been there was now holding its breath, waiting. The handprint began to dry, cracking at the edges, but the weight of unseen eyes never lifted. The first light of dawn peeled back the night's illusions, revealing the salt flats for what they truly were, an endless, sun-bleached expanse, its horizon wavering under the rising heat. The ridge Jason had crossed was nothing more than a cruel trick of the light, a mirage conjured by the desert to disorient him. His map, though old, had been right all along. The valley was still there, just beyond the flats, hidden behind layers of atmospheric deception. Nearby, the cairns stood silent and weathered, their arrows no longer ominous but practical, markers, left by migrants or wanderers who had passed through long before him, their purpose now clear. The stones, once seeming like a warning, were simply a trail for those who knew how to read them, their mystery unraveled by the merciless clarity of day. Even the terrors of the night had rational explanations, though they offered little comfort. The giggling that had frozen his blood was, in truth, the whine of a feral dog carried on the wind, its pitch warped by distance, and the strange acoustics of the flats. The handprint on the tent flap, so impossibly small, was his own, a smudge of mud from when he'd stumbled in the dark, his panicked fingers leaving a mark he hadn't recognized in the moment. Yet as Jason packed his tent, his hands trembled. Reason couldn't shake the memory of that giggle, so close it had felt like breath on his neck, or the way the silence had listened after he spoke. Daylight had stripped the night of its monsters, but it couldn't erase the primal fear they'd left behind. the uneasy sense that, out here, the desert wore more faces than one. At dawn, Jason followed the cairns, their arrow-like formations guiding him with unsettling precision across the bleached expanse, until the trail stopped abruptly at a sheer rock face, its impassable surface mocking his search for meaning. There at the base where the last stones pointed, pressed into the damp earth as if made moments before, was a single boot print. The tread unmistakably his own, the size a perfect match. His breath came fast as he pressed his boot beside it, identical in every way. Yet he knew with cold certainty he had never stood here before, that no human foot could have left this mark so recently, in untouched ground. The cairns had led him not to answers, but to a question that coiled in his gut. If the print wasn't his, then who or what was wearing his boots? A sudden gust of wind sliced through the stillness, carrying with it a whisper, not the playful giggle from the night before, but something ancient and guttural, a sound that scraped against Jason's eardrums like dry bone on stone. It didn't form words, not truly. Instead, it repeated them, a jagged echo of his own voice. I see you, but warped, hollow, as if whatever lurked out there had learned human speech through cracks in the earth. The words dissolved into a hiss, leaving behind only the salt-stung wind and the creeping certainty that something had been watching him all along, learning, waiting to speak in a voice almost, but not quite his own. A flicker of movement snapped Jason's attention to the edge of the cairns, a human silhouette, stark against the bleached earth, standing precisely where the last arrow of stones pointed. His head whipped toward it, pulse hammering, but the figure vanished as if swallowed by the desert air. Only the ground told the truth. Fresh boot prints, still damp at the edges, led away from where it had stood. His throat went dry. They matched his stride exactly. The wind moaned through the rocks, and for a terrible second, Jason wondered if he just glimpsed his own shadow. Walking ahead without him, Jason stood at the crossroads of his own terror. Behind him, the safety of his known path, now tainted by the night's horrors. Ahead, the boot prints vanishing into the shimmering void of the salt flats, where the heat danced like phantom water. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to flee the unnatural pull of those prints that wore his shape. But the whisper still clung to the wind, the cairns still pointed, and the desert seemed to breathe with a patience older than fear. His fingers clenched around the compass, its needle now still and pointing forward, as if the choice had already been made for him. To go back was to surrender to the unknown. To go forward was to meet it. With a sharp exhale, Jason took the first step forward, and the wind erupted in a howl, as if the desert itself had been waiting. Behind him, the cairns trembled, then collapsed in a slow, deliberate cascade, their stones scattering like bones kicked aside by some unseen force. The path back was gone, erased grain by grain in the swirling dust, leaving only the shimmering expanse ahead. His boots sank into the salt-crusted earth, each print filling instantly with seeping water that shouldn't exist. The air thrummed with a low, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat beneath the ground. The only way out is through, he muttered, not to steady himself, but because something now was whispering it with him. How did you like the first story? Let's move on to the second one. Mark, a freelance photographer, takes a risky shortcut through the Sonoran desert to reach a remote assignment faster. His GPS leads him onto an abandoned highway, once a smuggling route, now forgotten by maps. The desert is vast, silent, and unnervingly still. The sign was barely legible, sun-bleached and bullet-riddled, its rusted metal groaning in the hot wind, but the words "road closed" were still clear enough. Mark hesitated for only a second before, steering his car onto the cracked asphalt, tires crunching over the fractured surface, like something brittle giving way. The highway stretched ahead, a withered vein through the desert, its yellow lines faded into ghostly smears. Every bump sent a shudder through the chassis, the sound of crumbling pavement beneath him, too much like the slow snap of old bones. He glanced in the rear view, half expecting to see the sign vanish behind him, but it just stood there, crooked and mocking, as if it had already given up warning him. The payphone stood like a relic from another time, its metal frame rusted to a dull orange, the glass panels long since shattered. A single bulb flickered above it, casting erratic shadows that slithered across the cracked pavement. The receiver dangled from its cord, swaying slightly in the dry desert wind, its hollow earpiece hissing with static. The sound was unnervingly alive, a white noise whisper that seemed to coil around Mark as he stepped closer. His fingers brushed the cold, pitted metal of the receiver before lifting it to his ear. The static sharpened, then fractured, and for a heartbeat there was silence. Then a voice, ragged and thin, as if scraped raw from screaming, rasped, "Turn back." The line went dead with a final metallic click. Mark stood frozen, the receiver still pressed against his ear, the silence now heavier than the static had been. The bulb above him buzzed, dimmed, then winked out. Mark first noticed the headlights in his rearview mirror, two pinpricks of light hovering in the distance like unblinking eyes. At first he thought nothing of them, just another traveler on this desolate stretch of road. But as the miles stretched on, the lights never grew closer, never faded, just lingered, unwavering, a silent presence trailing him through the dark. His fingers tightened on the wheel, his pulse quickening as he pressed the accelerator harder, the engine groaning in protest. Yet when he checked again, the headlights remained, fixed in the same impossible distance, as though the road itself were stretching to keep them apart. Mark's stomach dropped as he glanced at the fuel gauge. The needle jerked downward before his eyes, ticking past quarter tank, as if some invisible hand were draining it dry. He just filled up at the last town, could still smell the gasoline on his fingers from when he'd screwed the cap back on. But now the dial betrayed him, sinking toward empty with unnatural speed. The engine coughed, a wet shuddering gasp, and for one terrifying second, the headlights flickered as the car lurched, as if something beneath the hood had taken a breath and decided not to let go. The headlights of his dying car illuminated a crooked wooden cross, lashed together with barbed wire, surrounded by a cluster of Polaroids pinned beneath sun-bleached rocks. Mark's breath caught as he stepped closer. Each photo showed a different face, their features smeared, as if fingers had dragged across the wet film, leaving only grotesque smudges where eyes and mouth should be. The dates scrawled beneath them in marker sent a chill through him. All today's date. A single candle flickered at the base of the shrine, its wax still pooling fresh, the flame dancing as though someone had just lit it moments before he arrived. The silence in the car was shattered by a sudden burst of static as the radio flared to life on its own, the dial twisting with a mechanical whine before locking onto a frequency. A distorted voice, fractured by interference, stuttered through the speakers. "Avoid the route bodies found, repeat, do not," before the transmission collapsed back into a hissing void. Mark slammed his palm against the dashboard, but the radio refused to turn off, the static now throbbing like a pulse, filling the car with the electric scent of ozone and something darker, like scorched meat and wet earth. The headlights in his mirror flickered in time with the noise, as if whatever was broadcasting the warning was also watching him. Mark's pulse hammered in his throat as his headlights revealed a lone figure up ahead, silhouetted and still, its arm extended with a hitchhiker's thumb. He eased off the gas, instinct warring with dread, but as the beams fully illuminated the stranger, his blood turned to ice. Where a face should have been, there was only smooth, blank skin, stretched taut like a mannequin's. Then, with unnatural slowness, the figure raised its other hand and pointed, not at Mark but past him, back toward those relentless headlights still hovering in the distance. The air in the car thickened, the radio's static rising to a shriek as the faceless hitchhiker's arm remained outstretched, a silent warning in the dark. Mark's foot kicked something metallic near the payphone, a sun-bleached border patrol badge, its emblem nearly worn away. Beneath it, a scrap of paper, brittle with age, bore a message scrawled in what looked like dried blood. "They heard you. Run." His breath came short as the pieces snapped together, the headlights keeping their distance, the vanishing fuel, the shrine of missing travelers. This wasn't just an abandoned highway, it was a trap, a winding stretch of asphalt where something, or someone, corralled the lost like prey. The payphone's static hissed louder, as if laughing, and for the first time, Mark realized the truth. He wasn't driving toward an exit, he was being driven. The engine gave one final, shuddering gasp, then silence. Mark's stomach lurched as the car coasted to a stop, the headlights behind him surging forward at last, their blinding glow swallowing his rearview mirror. Then, cutting through the suffocating quiet, the payphone's shrill ring shattered the night. With numb fingers, he lifted the receiver, and this time his own voice, hoarse with terror, rasped through the line. Too late. The headlights were almost upon him now, their glare erasing the road ahead. The phone's dead static filling his ears as the realization hit. He wasn't the first to hear that warning, and like the others, he wouldn't be the last. The headlights froze just feet from his bumper, their blinding glare cutting through the dust-choked air. A car door slammed, once twice, the sound too sharp, in the desert's unnatural silence, and then the payphone's receiver began swinging violently, though no wind stirred, its hollow earpiece echoing with a laughter that wasn't human. Mark barely had time to turn before his camera, abandoned on the passenger seat, whirred to life on its own. The flash erupted, searing his vision, and in that split second of blinding light, he glimpsed the photo ejecting, his own face staring back, eyes wide with a terror he hadn't yet felt, his mouth stretched in a scream that hadn't yet left his throat. By the time the darkness swallowed him whole, the camera's screen was already fading to black. A solo traveler ventures into a vast desert, searching for a legendary oasis, rumored to have healing waters. After your GPS fails, you're stranded, dehydrated, disoriented, and desperate. The dunes stretch endlessly, and the sun bleaches the world into a fever dream. Then you find the truck and the corpse, lost in the endless dunes. My GPS dead and canteen empty. I stumble upon a pickup truck, half buried in the sand. Its door creaks open to reveal a sun-bloated corpse, lips split like dry earth, fingers clutching a notebook. The last entry, scrawled in shaky script, reads, "They're not mine. The footprints not mine." That night, boots crunch around my tent. My knife vanishes, and at dawn, fresh tracks spiral toward me, not away. The truth comes in flashes of feverish horror. The intruder is me, my mind shattered by heat, sleepwalking through the wastes, just like the corpse before me. Now as I stagger toward the horizon, my own shadow taunts me, and the notebook's final warning echoes in my skull. You won't be the one who finds the water. The pickup truck emerges from the dunes like a half-sunken ship, its tires swallowed by the shifting sand. The door hangs open, rusted hinges groaning in the wind as I approach. Inside, the stench of decay rolls out in a thick wave. A corpse slumps against the seat, skin stretched taut and glossy from days under the merciless sun. Its mouth gapes, lips split like parched riverbeds, and in its clawed hands, a leather-bound notebook, warped from heat and time. My fingers tremble as I pry it loose, the pages crackling like dead leaves. The last entry is barely legible, the ink smeared as if by frantic, sweating hands. "They're not mine. The footprints not mine." A dry laugh escapes me, delirium, nothing more. But as the wind howls through the cab, carrying whispers of sand against metal, I can't shake the feeling that something is out there, watching, waiting. And when I turn, my own footprints stretch behind me, leading not from the truck but toward it. The words, "They're not mine. The footprints not mine," stare up from the page, the ink bled and frantic. And I laugh, just heatstroke playing tricks, just the desert gnawing at my sanity. But as the wind hisses through the truck's broken windows, the words coil around my thoughts like a scorpion's tail. And suddenly my own footprints in the sand seem too far apart, too deep, as if something heavier than me had been walking in my skin. The sun collapses into the dunes, staining the sky a sickly purple as I wrestle my tent into the restless sand. The wind rises in mournful howls, whipping grit against the fabric, but beneath its wail comes another sound, crunch, a slow, deliberate press of weight on sand. My hands freeze mid-knot. The sound comes again, closer this time, boots grinding against earth, in a rhythm that doesn't match the wind's chaos. I hold my breath, ears straining, the firelight gutters, casting jagged shadows that leap and twist like things alive. Crunch, right behind the tent now. My pulse hammers in my throat as I turn, knife in hand, but the blade's edge glints empty air. The wind dies. In the sudden silence, the sand whispers a final, unmistakable step, just outside the flat, close enough to smell my sweat. Then nothing, only my own ragged breath, and the creeping certainty that something is standing there, waiting for dark to fall completely. My hand flies to my belt, empty, The knife's absence hits like a punch to the gut, sending icy panic through my veins. I lunge for the tent flap, throwing it open with a gasp, but the night swallows everything beyond the fire's dying glow. The dunes stand silent, indifferent, the wind erasing any trace of movement. Only then do I notice them. Fresh boot prints pressed deep into the sand, circling my tent, stopping right where I now kneel, as if whoever stood there had been watching me sleep, close enough to touch. The first light of dawn stains the desert in pale gold, revealing what the night had hidden. As I crawl from my tent, stiff-limbed and dry-mouthed, the sand tells a story I don't want to read. Fresh footprints, deep and deliberate, circling my shelter in a tight, obsessive spiral. The tread is unmistakable, heavy boots, the kind I'm wearing, but the pattern is all wrong. My breath catches in my throat as I trace their path with a trembling finger. They don't approach from the dunes or lead back into the wastes. They start here, right at the tent flap, as if someone or something had emerged from inside with me. And then they walk in a perfect, maddening loop before returning to where I now stand. I stagger back, my pulse roaring in my ears. The prints don't lead away into the desert. They lead to me, to this exact spot, as if the walker had been waiting here, facing the tent when the sun rose. The wind kicks up, scattering sand across the evidence, but not fast enough to erase the truth glaring up at me. The steps are mine. The stride, the drag of the left heel, I know my own gait, but that's impossible. Unless I walked in my sleep, unless I've been outside all night, circling myself like a vulture over carrion. The notebook's words slither back into my mind. They're not mine, but they are. And that's so much worse. The last few drops of water cling to the canteen's metal ribs, and I tilt it to my lips with reverent desperation. But as the tepid liquid touches my tongue, my reflection in the dented surface twitches, a flicker of movement where none should be. I freeze, staring at the warped image staring back, my sun-cracked lips, my hollow eyes, but something else there too. A subtle wrongness in the angle of my jaw, the curve of my smile, too wide, too knowing. I drop the canteen like it's burned me, and the water vanishes into the thirsty sand. That night the fire sputters, its light shrinking with each passing hour, and the darkness beyond its reach grows restless. Whispers slither through the wind, syllables just shy of intelligible, and at the edge of vision, a shadow peels itself from the dunes, not cast by flame, but moving against it, shifting when nothing else does. I clutch my knees to my chest, eyes darting as the shape takes a single, deliberate step forward, then melts into the blackness, leaving only the echo of a breath that wasn't mine. I jerk awake with a gasp, my throat packed with grit, the taste of the desert thick on my tongue. The world swims into focus, not my tent, not the fire's ashes, but endless dunes under a bleached sky, stretching farther than my parched mind can comprehend. My muscles scream as I sit up, sand cascading from my clothes, and that's when I see them, boot prints, my own, trailing back into the shimmering distance, a staggered path of madness carved into the earth. My stomach lurches. I don't remember walking. I don't remember anything. Just fragments of dreams where something wore my skin and marched me into the wastes. The notebook's warning claws at my thoughts. They're not mine, but they are. And the worst part, the tracks ahead of me are fresh, still crumbling at the edges, leading even deeper into the nothingness. I've been walking in my sleep, and whatever's inside me, the realization hits like a hammer blow. The corpse in the truck wasn't hunted or haunted. It was just like me, a traveler who thought they were being followed, who scribbled desperate warnings as their mind unraveled under the desert's cruel eye. The intruder was never real. The footsteps, the stolen knife, the shadows circling my tent, all fragments of a fractured mind. My own body moving without me, driven by heat stroke and dehydration into a waking nightmare. The horror isn't that something's out there. It's that the enemy is the one staring back from the canteen's warped reflection, wearing my face, walking my path. And the worst question of all lingers. If I'm already lost to myself, how will I know when I stop being the hunter and become the next corpse in the sand? I stumble through the burning wastes, my cracked lips screaming curses at the thing that stalks me, my own lengthening shadow, which twists and jerks in ways shadows shouldn't. The notebook's final line slithers through my mind like a venomous whisper. You won't be the one who finds the water. And suddenly I understand. The corpse in the truck didn't die of thirst. It died of terror, realizing too late that the oasis was never real. Just another cruel trick of the desert, dangled before broken minds. My laughter comes out as a sob as I fall to my knees, because I can hear them now. Boots crunching in the sand right behind me. And I don't dare look, because I already know I'll see nothing there. Nothing but my own footprints, circling, always circling, as the sun bleaches my bones. If you enjoyed this chilling desert nightmare, drop a comment below and let me know what scared you the most. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another terrifying tale.